Back. Great to have you with us on SABC News. The Nelson Mandela Foundation has reiterated its call for President Jacob Zuma to resign. In a statement today, it says South Africans can no longer wait for him to go. It says from December, it watched in disbelief as floodgates of testimony opened, from hearings to investigations and other forms of disclosure, all around corruption and what's been going on. The Foundation CEO, Sello Hatang, joins us in studio. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, one of your concerns was also the ugly scenes, presumably linked to what could have happened at the State of the Nation address. Are you happy it's been postponed?
Well, we not only talking about the violence that could have maybe erupted out inside Parliament. We're also referring to the violent scenes in town, in Johannesburg.
Yeah, even outside the ANC headquarters.
Even outside the ANC headquarters, and you don't. The last thing you want to see is South Africans tearing each other apart, all in the name of retention or departure of a leader. And I think it's important that this moment reminds us that we need to always be conscious that people are watching, and they are always worried about how we are being governed, how the good governance need to be at the core of everything we do.
You released a statement saying the time is of the essence. South Africans can no longer wait. Just tell us a bit more.
I think you'd remember that 18 months ago, when the foundation issued its first statement, we then joined the Kathrada Foundation, we joined others, many civil society organizations. At the time, many said, no, these guys are crazy. All of you should just keep quiet, because we cannot remove a president who is still president of the ANC and president of the country. And
democratically elected.
And democratically elected. Which in part you could say was legitimate. But then when you see issues of governance where leadership is failing us in every respect, where mediocrity is promoted over excellence, where the economy is struggling the way it is struggling, you then have to begin to ask questions about corruption, to say, isn't it time that we then do that? 18 months ago we said so, and we think this is the best time to then do what should have been done a long time ago.
That was before the Gupta emails and things like that. Cyril Ramaphosa in Davos, I think, suggested to international media that things have changed. Maybe there's been those emails, more evidence. You're saying that you spoke early. As the foundation, have you done enough, even? Because maybe in years to come, South Africans will read about this, it'll be in the history books, historians will look back and say, what was society doing? Do you know what I mean? How did we get to this crunch point? Do you believe you've done enough?
One of the things that we've been consistent on was the issue of good governance. We have been saying consistently that you cannot allow a situation where we end up being the joke of the world, that everybody will be looking around to say, what has happened to the country of Mandela? What has happened to the country of Sisulu, of Albertina Sisulu, who's turning 100 years this year herself, and would have turned 100 years this year herself? That we should then be saying, history must judge us well. That at the time that we were called upon to say it's time that President Zuma should go, not because of the call of the elections. We would be misplaced to then say that it's because the governing party will lose elections if he still stays. We're saying it's because the majority of South Africans are saying he's not a good governor, he's not a good leader.
Is this about leadership? Because somebody said to me today, interestingly enough, we need to vet our leaders. We need to choose people with good character. But how do you do that in the first place? You don't really know how things are going to pan out.
One of the things that has been called upon is that we should be changing even our electoral systems, because it makes people more accountable. And you'd agree with me, I hope, that you have, when you have a system which Kaya Stole says it's sort of a rubber stamping system. A minority makes a decision for the majority that this will be your leadership. It cannot be normal. It shouldn't be allowed to be something that continues. So I think we need to now be going back to the drawing board and saying, what is it that we need to be doing differently? at the levels of inequality and poverty that we have at the moment, with the levels of corruption and mistrust of government and governance, what do we need to be doing differently? And the electoral system is also not immune to that.
What do you hope for tomorrow? It seems like it isn't over until the National Executive Committee speaks.
We hope that they will be inspired to do the right thing. We hope that they will look back and say, we should have done this thing a long time ago. The president, and again, it's a point that we should make over and over, that it's not just about President Zuma, the person, the individual. It's also about the networks that have been built around him, that we must then uproot those networks. And until such time that we do that, we will remove the president, but with his removal, the same things will continue at the municipal level, at a provincial level, and at the national level. And all of us need to then take account and look back and say, what do we need to be doing differently? And we are hopeful that they will be inspired to do the right thing. Remove President Zuma and all the networks that have made it possible for him to come this far.
And Nelson Mandela's legacy will be drawn upon. It's already been drawn upon by Cyril Ramaphosa. This is the year. How will that help? How can that change things?
I think if there's one thing that Madiba has taught us over and over, is to know when to leave. You'd remember
Good
that
point,
he said, I'll serve one term and one term only. He didn't even want to be persuaded to stay longer. And I think that's the important thing that the ANC leadership needs to remember. It's that all of us must remember, it's time, when it's time to go, it's time to go. And you must bow out when you still have a moment you can reflect and say, maybe I could have done differently. Madiba was not perfect. And we never want to suggest that he was perfect. I mean, if you look at some of the things where he admitted to have made some mistakes. Remember, a good example that we always refer to is when he called for the voting age to be reduced to 14. In his handwriting, in the notebooks that we have in the foundation, you see him writing there, reflecting on the NEC meeting, when they were saying he was rapped on the knuckles for that, when they were saying, no, you have made a reckless statement. This is not something that we have endorsed, etc. And what Madiba then said, at the end, he says, conclusion, I have made a grave error of judgment. How do I correct it? I think we've made it's time that we look back and say, maybe we've made a grave error of judgment. And to correct it, it would be to uproot these networks that we're talking about.
All right, thank you so much for your time. The Nelson Mandela Foundation's CEO, Sello Hatang.